Hello, Paul Lee from Deloitte, and very nice to meet you. And you're here at the Mobile World Congress.
Yes.
Tell me more about yourself. What do you cover at Deloitte?
So I look after research for tech, media and telecoms. So this is a permanent role, and I'm just looking at all the major trends happening in the markets, and I talk to our clients and to press about what is happening in the market from our perspective.
And from a global ecosystem role as market as you have telco, you have internet companies, cloud services, all a triple play sort of environment. What do you see happening on the global scale?
Well, the main thing to get across, so we're at the Mobile World Congress, and what I hear as a complaint very often is nothing's changing. But if you look, every year things get better and better. So one demonstration we've just had in this event is Google Glass augmented reality. A year ago this wasn't possible. In a year's time it will be a lot better. So evolution is a watchword for technology, for media, for telecoms, and that's why it generates so much value. So if you just look at, say, smartphones, 7 or 8 years ago they hardly existed. Now it's 1.2 billion units for this year, growing very fast in all regions, CIS, and they will get better and better. So even in, let's say we're in Spain, penetration right here, it's about 80% of young people, but every year those people, half of them change their phones, improve their phones, they do more with them. So nothing ever stands still.
Okay, so a sort of an evolutionary, as you said, improvements in quality of service, connectivity. But what about some sort of revolutionary or disconnected types of events that, since you are the predictions visionary, what do you foresee?
I know the thing is we always look for revolution, we look for disconnects, right? But they are very, very exceptional. And if we just look for the exceptions, you end up missing the bigger picture, which is every year things get more possible, more feasible. So one thing about the technology, media and telecom sector is it has this thing called Moore's Law, which means every year for the last 60 years, what you can get for the same dollar spent on technology gets 30-40% bigger, which is one reason why the topple rate amongst technology companies is so high. So half of the companies here, the big ones, may not exist in 10 years' time. So it's really, really hard to be at the top of your game as a supplier. As a consumer, whether it's enterprise or an individual, it's absolutely fantastic because what you get for your money gets better and better all the time. So if we look for, so what are the disconnects? Then one thing which has been happening for many years is what you can do with a mobile phone has been changing for the last 30 years, right? It's a steady evolution. If you look at 5 years back, then you have a big disconnect. If you look 10 years back, an even bigger disconnect. But what we need to be looking at is the next 3 or 4 years and saying, what is it we'll be doing because we can do, because the devices are good enough, because the networks are fast enough that we can't do today. That's what we should be focusing on.
Okay, great. Now, since you do look after all these ecosystems around the world, and markets being dissimilar as well as similar, and I know that you don't specifically cover the Russia CIS market, but we know it to be a market under $10 a month ARPU. And that's much below the developed markets. What do you see as opportunity for growth in that ARPU?
Well, the opportunity for growth is, so if you look at what's been happening, say, in Western Europe, so there's been a shift away, for example, from spending on things that people used to like when they were young, like buying a first car, to consumer tech. So consumer tech is great value for money compared, for example, to some aspects of owning a car, the depreciation on it. I was reading a stat about, for example, Germany last year, the average age for one manufacturer buying those cars in their 50s, whereas the people in their 20s and their 30s are spending more money on consumer tech and on the services that go with it. So looking at growing that $10 ARPU to $20, it's offering a lot more content, a lot more devices that people want to have for various different reasons, and their spend will just go up on it. So if you look at, for example, paid television, every year we get people saying, oh, it can't go up higher, but it increases. You look at sports rights. This year we're expecting global sports rights for the biggest brands to go up 14%. The previous 5 years, the average growth was just 5%. So people are happy to spend more and more money on buying pay TV for sports because it's what they enjoy, it's what they associate with. There's a big emotional tie to that. So when you offer more and better, people will shift their spend. So even with, say, declining real incomes, which is what happens in some markets, you can get a reallocation of spend to what people really want to focus on, what they really get enjoyment out of.
Now let me see if I got that right, because obviously you're focused on the consumer markets, and specifically you mentioned a lot of entertainment, which is a very exciting global growth marketplace. But also on the other side, there's the SMEs and the enterprises with their business needs and all of that. Is there a good growth curve there, do you predict?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of their usage of technology, it always gets better. So the more that you can do online, the more efficient you can be in terms of supply chain, in terms of delivery. So if you go from physical delivery to digital delivery, you can get massive economies in distribution. If you're going to online retail, then of course you've got much better issues in terms of stock. If you can get to people wherever they are, so if you put a website onto a phone and make it work, which is difficult to do, then you can reach a much bigger market. And that's been the case for the last 15 years, will be the case for the next 15 years. And constantly, what you can do via technology will get better and better. So a lot of the industries we're currently looking at, financial services, retail, they're getting reinvented steadily all the time. And the big driver is what you can do with technology at a certain price point.
And yet the mobile operators in the last, I don't know, since Apple and Android, iOS and Android came on the scene, have been largely disintermediated and taken out of the equation, and they become more bit pipe providers. And now perhaps there's an opportunity to become re-intermediated, and for instance in payment services, start to offer an integrated set of services that make the consumer happy, or the
a couple
SME
of
happy.
things around that. So for many years, and I used to be a consultant, I used to go, you don't want to be a dumb pipe, but actually being a pipe, for different things, it could be for connectivity, it could be for other commodities like oil and gas, can be a really lucrative business if you have the best-in-class pipes. That will never change. So there'll always be a value in being a pipe because it can be very, very high margin. And now in terms of the disintermediation and looking at to what extent do you want to be doing payments. So one thing where operators can have a role in terms of payments is providing the billing platform for digital artifacts and also for physical artifacts which are transacted online. So there is a cost to billing. So that is why you have services like the App Store, like Play, which provide that outsourced service. And operators have a billing platform, and in fact, there are already hundreds of millions of dollars which are transacted via white label billing platforms, which are owned or else which are used by the operators. So that billing relationship can be very valuable. The validity of that, of course, varies by different markets. So in Russia, it's largely a prepaid market, but you can also upload credit to a mobile account. And in Africa, that's one thing where it's really predominant.